Hello, and welcome to the Erie County Climate Action Introduction video. My name is Tracy Skalski, and I'm the Sustainability Coordinator out of Erie County Department of Environment and Planning. My email is listed here. Please feel free to reach out to me directly with any questions throughout this community climate action planning process. So what is Erie County Climate Action? Erie County Climate Action is the county's planning process as we work to develop an equity-centered community climate action plan. We will identify actions we can take to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help the community adapt to our changing climate. The plan will set aggressive emission reduction goals, which will follow the New York State Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. And like the Climate Act, our plan will be centered in equity. We are looking to create a plan that will create jobs, opportunities, and protections for the most vulnerable in our community. We have designed the planning process so the community can be very involved in the development of this plan. We will engage the community in a way that considers issues of access and the ability to participate for vulnerable populations. Our goal is to provide ample opportunity for public input by using a place-based planning process with a public feedback loop. We are now ready to begin developing the plan and to receive your feedback. We are looking to identify issues and solutions by working with the community in a transparent way from the beginning to the end of the program. This plan will be organized around those issues and solutions that will have the biggest impact and which the county has the ability to address. We will continually ask for input from the community and use that feedback received to shape the plan. We'll develop place-based performance metrics and an accountability structure to assure effective implementation. We'll also regularly inform county leadership and the public on the progress and the process of this plan. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Josh Wilson. I'm the Sustainability Director at the Erie County Department of Environment and Planning. And my role today is first to talk to you about the threat of climate change and really the context of that threat. And there's been a lot out on this. I'm sure everyone has heard about climate change and about the threat of climate change. I just want to share, if you've got a few minutes, I want to share one way we see this threat and the importance of the county standing up with the community and addressing the threat. And then the second part of my presentation will be a single slide where I'm going to talk about the greenhouse gas inventory. So climate change in context. And this is really zooming out. This is the context of 500 million years on Earth, way back before there were even mammals on Earth. And what you see is the planet through prehistory has huge variation in temperature. And all the areas in red on here are areas where the planet wouldn't even support polar ice, wouldn't support sea ice or polar ice caps. So this is times when things were radically different than they are today, when places like New York would have been tropical versus what they are today. And what you see at the far right, just kind of a blip, is that recent history has shown that the area where humans have existed has been one of the cooler periods on Earth. In fact, all of human history has been in a relatively stable, cool period. And the very, very right side of that, you see temperatures starting to really increase quickly. So this next slide is really zooming in on that other chart. And this has a different scale. This is in centigrade, not Fahrenheit. So the temperatures are actually larger in Fahrenheit terms than they are in terms of centigrade. But the key point here is the time when Homo sapiens, when our species has existed on Earth, has been one of these cool times. And the time when civilization emerged has been an extremely stable, cool time. And so all through that human history, that 12 or so thousand years of human civilization, you see very stable temperatures. And then moving to the right, you see things start to change. Between 2005 and 2100, the red shows kind of a status quo scenario where we don't take action on climate change and we just roll into the future without doing anything special. And you see the temperatures in that time frame really increase a lot. The gray and the blue show what happens if we actually work to mitigate climate change. So quite a big difference. And when we get into that temperature of 5 or 7 degrees centigrade increase, if we were to look back on that other chart, that takes us back into prehistory as far as where temperatures are. The Earth has not seen temperatures this warm since the time of the dinosaurs, around the time of the extinction of the dinosaurs. We're putting our Earth into prehistory by our emission of greenhouse gases as far as its temperature situation. And that has all kinds of implications and creates a lot of threats. So making this real in terms of New York State. And this image shows the map of New York superimposed on lower and lower parts of the United States to indicate what our climate would be like in the future. In the red, New York State outlines are with a higher emission scenario versus the yellow, which are a lower emission scenario. And what you see is by 2070 to 2090, under the higher emission scenario, with the temperature rise we're talking about, New York starts to have a temperature that is similar to Georgia or South Carolina. And this isn't way into the future. 2070, my daughter's 13 years old. 2070 and 2090 is right smack in the middle of her lifetime. This is coming at us really fast. And we're talking about New York having temperatures that would just radically change all kinds of things about the way we live. Agriculture, our communities, our ecosystems, our lake, and our larger world. This kind of temperature change doesn't just affect New York, it destabilizes things around the world, it changes food systems, it changes supply chains, it increases the likelihood of war and famine. And so we really want to avoid that kind of temperature increase. The light-colored scenarios, the yellow, still show New York warming up, but it is much different for New York to wind up with a temperature like Georgia versus like North Carolina. And we as a county and we as a community need to look forward, right? We need to think about what's protective for our community, what is the conservative thing to do to make sure that we are protecting life and property and making sure that our future generations have a place to live and making sure we're protecting vulnerable people. And that's what this is all about. So, okay, this is my last slide, and this is on a different topic. This is our greenhouse gas inventory. What you're seeing is our amount of greenhouse gas emissions in 2005 versus 2014. And the colors show us different emission sectors, where those source sectors are. And what you see is that between 2005 and 2014, we had a substantial reduction in emissions, about 12% reduction. And this mostly is because of changes in the electrical market in New York State and the greening of our electricity as we've transitioned away from coal power in New York State. And this transition has continued into the current day, where today we have hardly any coal in our mix. Another thing to point out about this slide is where our emissions come from. And you can see that transportation is our largest emission sector. So if we want to get our arms around greenhouse gas emissions in Erie County, obviously transportation is one of the places we really have to work. Similarly for residential and commercial energy consumption. So this greenhouse gas inventory both serves as a tool for measuring progress, but also serves as a roadmap for our working groups. They can look at this and see where to prioritize their efforts as far as emission reductions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bonnie Lawrence. Thank you.
Over recent years, we've seen intense storms, increased heat, wind damage, 7 feet of snow. And so we need to take action to mitigate these kind of impacts. The increase in flooding events through snowmelt and rainfall, as well as increased heat and heat waves and invasive species and vector-borne disease have been well documented. These climate events will cause risk to our region, risks to our environment and our economy and our health. The good news is there are ways to take action to decrease those risks. We can act individually. We can speak up and write letters to our representatives. We can plant in our own backyards or front yards native plants and plant trees. We can think about what we consume and how we dispose of what we consume. We can reduce our energy use. Things like LED light bulbs can make a big impact, or choosing clean energy through community solar. We can change our commute. We can think about riding into work with a friend, or taking the bus, or riding our bikes. But really, we need to act together. That's why we need you to get involved in the Erie County Climate Action Planning process. We want to know what you think should be addressed through this plan and what solutions should be implemented. Please visit our website, which is listed here, and sign up for email updates and learn how you can be involved in other ways, including being an ambassador, where you bring this planning process to your block club or your book club. We look forward to working with you.